America fell in love with Hooterville, but the off-camera reality was a battlefield of broken lives and forgotten heroes. From a secret genius playing a dim-witted hand to a legendary voice dying in poverty, the 13 stars of Green Acres shared a fate far more twisted than any script. This is the dark side you were never supposed to see. Eddie Albert, as Oliver Wendell Douglas. Eddie Albert was born on April 22, 1906, in Rock Island, Illinois, USA. At 59 years old, he played Oliver Wendell Douglas, the idealistic city lawyer turned farmer in Green Acres. His performance became the emotional backbone of the show, grounding its absurd humor with sincerity and quiet determination. Behind that calm and humorous presence was a life shaped by fear, pressure, and silent endurance. His wife, Margot, was targeted during the Hollywood blacklist era for her alleged leftist views, publicly humiliated and professionally destroyed. He had risked his life during World War II, rescuing 142 Marines at Tarawa, yet even that heroism could not shield his family from political persecution. Even Eddie Albert later had already built credibility through films like Roman Holiday, 1953, and later The Heartbreak Kid, 1972. The blacklist still restricted his opportunities at a critical point in his career. The emotional toll was profound. He later admitted it was a time when many lives were quietly broken, and some never recovered. The suffering deepened within his personal life. Margot died of brain cancer on July 17, 1985, after years of struggle, leaving Albert with a grief he rarely spoke about. In 1995, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, gradually losing his memory and independence. His son, Edward Albert Jr., gave up his own acting career to care for him, only to be diagnosed with lung cancer and endure 18 months of decline. The cruel timing meant that Edward Jr. passed away in 2006 at age 55, just 1 year after his father. Eddie Albert died on May 26, 2005, at the age of 99 from pneumonia at his home in Pacific Palisades, California. He was laid to rest at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery, beside his wife Margot, and near his Green Acres co-star Eva Gabor, a quiet reunion in death. His net worth was estimated at around $5 million, but beyond the numbers, he left behind a legacy defined not by fame, but by resilience. Eva Gabor, as Lisa Douglas. Eva Gabor was born on February 11, 1919, in Budapest, Hungary. At 46 years old, she played Lisa Douglas, the glamorous city wife forced into rural life in Green Acres. Her charm and comedic timing gave the show its sparkle, turning Lisa into one of television's most unforgettable characters. Yet behind that elegance was a lifelong struggle to find something she never truly had: emotional stability. Eva married 5 times, beginning with Dr. Eric Valdemar Drimmer, who not only controlled her life, but refused to let her have children, a decision that would haunt her for decades. Subsequent marriages to Charles Isaacs, Dr. John Elbert Williams, Richard Brown, and Frank Gard Jameson Sr. all ended in divorce, each one adding another layer of disappointment. Even during her career highs, including appearances in The Last Time I Saw Paris, 1954, and voice work in Disney's The Aristocats, 1970, her personal life remained fragmented. Her later relationships reflected that same instability. Her long on-and-off romance with Glenn Ford never led to marriage, despite years of emotional attachment. Toward the end of her life, she was linked to Merv Griffin, but reports suggested the relationship may have been more strategic than romantic, possibly masking deeper personal truths. Despite building a successful business empire in fashion, wigs, and cosmetics, Eva seemed to circle the same unresolved longing, a family she never had, and a sense of belonging that always slipped away just out of reach. Eva Gabor died on July 4, 1995, at the age of 76 in Los Angeles, after suffering respiratory failure and pneumonia following a fall that fractured her hip during a vacation in Mexico. Her funeral was held at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, marking the end of a life lived in constant motion but quiet loneliness. She earned an estimated net worth $5 million, largely from her business ventures. Pat Buttram as Mr. Haney. Pat Buttram was born on June 19, 1915, in Addison, Alabama, USA. At 50 years old, he played Mr. Haney, the fast-talking, scheming salesman in Green Acres. His sharp comedic timing and unmistakable gravelly voice turned Haney into one of the show's most memorable characters, adding a layer of chaotic humor that perfectly balanced the series. But long before the laughter, his life was shaped by hardship and quiet struggle. Growing up as the son of a poor Methodist minister, Buttram learned early how to survive with very little, relying on wit more than privilege. His distinctive voice, later described as sounding like gravel in a blender, was not just a gift, but also the result of strain and damage over years of performance and physical stress, possibly worsened by on-set incidents. Even when success came, it never fully translated into stability or recognition equal to his talent. His personal life carried its own quiet sorrow. His first marriage to Dorothy McFadden ended in divorce in 1946, despite their shared attempt to build a family through adoption. Later, he married actress Sheila Ryan in 1952, and for a time, it seemed he had found lasting companionship. But when Sheila died in 1975, Buttram's world shifted again. He never remarried, choosing instead a life of solitude. Pat Buttram died on January 8, 1994, at the age of 78 from kidney failure at UCLA Medical Center. He was buried in Maxwell Chapel United Methodist Church Cemetery in Alabama, returning to the quiet place where his life had begun. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, his legacy was not built on wealth, but on a voice and presence so unique that audiences could recognize him instantly. Tom Lester as Eb Dawson. Tom Lester was born on September 23, 1938, in Laurel, Mississippi, USA. At 26 years old, he played Eb Dawson, the naive but hard-working farmhand in Green Acres. His authentic rural background and natural charm made Eb feel real, turning him into a beloved character who connected deeply with audiences. But behind that simple and cheerful image was a long road filled with rejection and doubt. Before fame, Lester held a degree in chemistry and biology and worked as a teacher, yet he abandoned stability to chase acting in Hollywood, a decision that came with relentless failure. Casting directors repeatedly rejected him, calling him too thin, too awkward, and criticizing his heavy Southern accent. He was turned down hundreds of times before finally landing the role of Eb, not because he fit the mold, but because he was the only actor who actually knew how to milk a cow. Even after appearing in projects like The Pistol, The Birth of a Legend, 1991, and guest roles in Little House on the Prairie, he remained trapped in that one identity, unable to escape the shadow of Eb Dawson. That typecasting followed him for the rest of his life. While others moved on, Lester returned to a quieter existence, dedicating himself to faith, traveling across the country as a Christian speaker and preacher. His devotion gave him purpose. Health struggles added another layer of hardship. He battled mononucleosis during filming, and later in life, Parkinson's disease slowly took control of his body. Even his personal life carried instability. Though he married Kaylee Lester later in life, the years leading up to it were marked by isolation and emotional distance from the industry he once pursued so intensely. Tom Lester died on April 20, 2020, at the age of 81 due to complications from Parkinson's disease. He spent his final years on his farm in Mississippi, far from Hollywood, living the rural life that once defined his most famous role. With an estimated net worth of around $1.5 million, his story remains one of quiet perseverance. Frank Cady as Sam Drucker. Frank Cady was born on September 8, 1915, in Susanville, California, USA. At 49 years old, he played Sam Drucker, the reliable, level-headed general store owner in Green Acres. His steady presence gave the show a sense of realism, acting as a quiet anchor amid its surreal comedy. But behind that calm and familiar face was a man who quietly sacrificed recognition for consistency. Despite appearing in acclaimed films like Rear Window, 1954, and Ace in the Hole, 1951, Frank Cady never became a leading star, instead building a career out of supporting roles that rarely brought him the spotlight he deserved. Even at the peak of his success, he admitted that television had typecast him, reducing decades of diverse work into a single image, the small-town storekeeper. Yet his personal life told a very different story, one of rare stability and quiet devotion. In 1940, he married Shirley Catherine Jones, and their marriage lasted an extraordinary 68 years, surviving war, career uncertainty, and the ever-changing demands of Hollywood. Together, they built a simple, grounded life, far removed from the chaos of the industry, even enjoying mountain climbing in Switzerland well into their later years. But time eventually took its toll. Shirley passed away in 2008 at age 96, ending a partnership that had defined most of his life, leaving Cady to face his final years alone. Frank Cady died on June 8, 2012, at the age of 96 at his home in California, with no specific cause publicly disclosed. He was cremated, and his ashes were buried alongside his wife at Los Osos Valley Memorial Park, reuniting them in death as they had been in life. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, his legacy is not one of fame, but of quiet endurance. Hank Patterson, as Fred Ziffel. Hank Patterson was born on October 9, 1888, in Springville, Alabama, USA. At 76 years old, he played Fred Ziffel, the stubborn farmer who treated his pig Arnold like a son in Green Acres. His performance brought absurdity to life with complete sincerity, making one of television's strangest dynamics feel oddly believable. What few viewers ever realized was that Patterson was already fighting a silent battle during filming. He was nearly completely deaf. He could not hear his co-stars, cues, or even basic instructions on set. To compensate, the production team had to place a coach off camera, tapping his leg with a ruler to signal when it was his turn to speak. It was a humiliating workaround for any actor, yet Patterson never complained. Instead, he delivered performances so natural and convincing that audiences never suspected the struggle behind them. His decades-long career, including appearances in Gunsmoke and The Twilight Zone, had always been built on perseverance. But this was perhaps his greatest test. Through it all, he was supported by his wife, Daisy Marguerite Patterson, with whom he shared a long and steady marriage. While his on-screen persona was often loud and comedic, his real life was defined by quiet resilience, shaped by years of working without guarantees and performing without acknowledgement. Hank Patterson died on August 23, 1975, at the age of 86 from bronchial pneumonia. He was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood, a resting place shared by many in the industry he served for decades, without ever truly belonging to its elite. Alvy Moore as Hank Kimball. Alvy Moore was born on December 5, 1921, in Vincennes, Indiana, USA. At 43 years old, he played Hank Kimball, the absent-minded county agricultural agent in Green Acres. His chaotic, self-contradicting delivery turned Kimball into one of the show's most uniquely comedic characters, adding a constant sense of unpredictability to every scene. But behind that humor was a man shaped by trauma he refused to speak about. Before Hollywood, Moore had survived the brutal Battle of Iwo Jima as a U.S. Marine, an experience so devastating that he carried its psychological weight for the rest of his life. He never allowed interviewers to ask about the war, a silence that hinted at deep, unresolved PTSD. However, he still built a steady acting career with appearances in films like The Wild One, 1953, and Susan Slept Here, 1954. Off-screen, however, he found stability in his long marriage to Carolyn Moore, whom he married in 1950. They built a life together over 47 years, raising 3 children, but even that stability could not fully erase the emotional distance created by years of internal struggle. Alvy Moore died on May 4, 1997, at the age of 75 from heart failure at his home in Palm Desert, California, with his friend and co-star Tom Lester by his side. His wife Carolyn passed away in 2009, closing a chapter that had lasted nearly half a century. Mary Grace Canfield as Ralph Monroe. Mary Grace Canfield was born on September 3, 1924, in Rochester, New York, USA. At 40 years old, she played Ralph Monroe, the awkward yet determined female carpenter in Green Acres. Her character stood out as a rare break from traditional gender roles, bringing a subtle but important layer of uniqueness to the series. Yet behind that quirky presence was a woman who spent years struggling to be taken seriously. Before television, Canfield endured repeated disappointments on Broadway, appearing in productions like The Waltz of the Toreadors and The Frogs of Spring, most of which closed quickly and failed to elevate her career. Even when success came with Green Acres, it was bittersweet. She later admitted frustration that she was remembered for a role that required so little compared to the effort she had invested in theater. The industry had finally recognized her, but not for the work she valued most. Her life outside the spotlight remained quiet and reserved, shaped by a naturally shy personality that contrasted sharply with her on-screen eccentricity. While she continued acting in projects like Pollyanna, 1960, and appearances in General Hospital, she never fully escaped the feeling of being underestimated. The role that made her famous also became the one that confined her, leaving her career defined by a single image she never entirely embraced. Mary Grace Canfield died on February 15, 2014, at the age of 89 from lung cancer in Santa Barbara, California. She had made her final public appearance years earlier at Eddie Albert's funeral, a quiet farewell among familiar faces. Sid Melton as Alf Monroe. Sid Melton was born on May 22, 1917, in Brooklyn, New York, USA. At 48 years old, he played Alf Monroe, the clumsy carpenter, and half of the comedic duo Alf and Ralph in Green Acres. His physical comedy and distinctive presence added a playful, unpredictable energy that helped shape the show's quirky tone. Yet behind that humor was a career marked by limitation rather than recognition. Despite appearing in films like The Lemon Drop Kid, 1951, and Lady Sings the Blues, 1972, Sid Melton was consistently treated as a secondary figure, cast as sidekicks, comic relief, or background characters. His small stature and unconventional appearance made him an easy target for typecasting, often reducing his roles to jokes rather than fully developed characters. Even when he worked steadily across nearly 60 years and appeared in over 140 projects, the industry never allowed him to step into the spotlight he had spent a lifetime chasing. His personal life reflected that same sense of incompleteness. A brief marriage in the 1940s ended in annulment, and he never remarried, spending most of his later years alone. As time passed, he became a familiar face that people could recognize instantly, yet few truly knew his story. Sid Melton died on November 2, 2011, at the age of 94 from pneumonia at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California. With an estimated $500,000 net worth, his legacy lives on through the countless roles he played. Fran Ryan as Doris Ziffel / Minnie Holcomb. Fran Ryan was born on November 29, 1916, in Los Angeles, California, USA. At around 53 years old, she played Doris Ziffel, the farmer's wife and mother figure in the Ziffel household in Green Acres, later also appearing as Minnie Holcomb. Taking over the role after Barbara Pepper, she helped maintain continuity in the story, preserving the emotional core of the Ziffel family despite a major cast change. But behind that steady on-screen presence was a life marked by almost unimaginable tragedy. Her first husband, Walter Kenneth Wayne, died in a plane crash in January 1951 while she was pregnant with their only child. Just months later, still grieving and raising a newborn son alone, she remarried Howard Schaefer in 1953, only for history to repeat itself in the most devastating way. Howard also died in a plane crash that same year, his wreckage not even discovered until 15 years later, and his remains never found. For Fran Ryan, loss was not a single moment, but a recurring nightmare that reshaped her life twice within just 2 years. Despite this, she continued working, slowly rebuilding her career through persistence. She appeared in projects like The Long Riders, 1980, and Pale Rider, 1985, while also becoming a familiar face on television in shows such as Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. Her strength was quiet, her performances grounded, shaped by a life that had already tested her beyond what most could endure. Fran Ryan died on January 15, 2000, at the age of 83. She was cremated, and in 2004, her ashes were laid to rest alongside her mother at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in California. Her legacy is not one of fame, but of survival. Barbara Pepper as Doris Ziffel. Barbara Pepper was born on May 31, 1915, in New York City, New York, USA. At 50 years old, she played Doris Ziffel, the warm but eccentric farm wife in Green Acres. Her performance brought emotional depth to the show, grounding its absurdity with a sense of familiarity and heart. But her life off-screen was far more tragic than anything she portrayed. Once a rising actress who appeared in dozens of films like Mummy's Boys, 1936, and later My Fair Lady, 1964, Barbara Pepper's world collapsed after the sudden death of her husband, Craig Reynolds, in a motorcycle accident in 1949. Left to raise 2 children alone, she struggled under the weight of grief and responsibility. In an attempt to cope, she turned to alcohol, a decision that would slowly unravel both her health and her career. Her addiction led to significant weight gain, limiting her roles and ultimately costing her the opportunity to star as Ethel Mertz in I Love Lucy, a role she was strongly considered for but lost due to concerns about her reliability. The consequences were devastating. As her health declined, so did her career opportunities. Even her longtime friendship with Lucille Ball could not survive the instability caused by her addiction. By the time she joined Green Acres, she was already battling serious physical issues, and her condition worsened to the point that she had to leave the show before it ended, replaced by another actress. Her life then took an unexpected turn that shocked many fans. Pamela became deeply involved in radical animal rights activism, eventually leading protests against laboratories and animal testing facilities. She married surgeon and activist Jerry Vlasak in 1986, but the relationship ended in divorce in 2008, amid growing controversy around their activism. Her protests escalated into legal trouble when she was arrested and briefly jailed in 2006 for demonstrating outside a city official's home. The once beloved child star suddenly found herself at the center of public outrage and court cases. As of 2026, Pamela Ferdine is 67 years old and continues to support animal rights causes while living largely outside the entertainment industry. Though she left acting decades ago, her early career in television, film, and voice acting helped build an estimated $1.5 million fortune, leaving behind a story that moved from childhood fame to a life defined by activism and controversy. Richard Stahl as Monk and the Judge. Richard Stahl was born on January 4, 1932, in Detroit, Michigan, USA. At 38 years old, he appeared in The Odd Couple, playing roles such as Monk and occasionally a judge. His natural comedic timing and expressive face made even small appearances memorable in the series. His personal life was far steadier than the chaotic characters he played. Stahl met actress Catherine Ish in 1959 while performing in off-Broadway theater, and the two quickly formed both a romantic and creative partnership. They moved to San Francisco together and joined the improvisational comedy group The Committee, where Stahl sharpened his talent for spontaneous humor. Then his life changed in a way no comedy could soften. In the mid-1990s, Richard Stahl was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. The illness progressed relentlessly over the next decade, slowly robbing him of control over his body. Acting became impossible as tremors and muscle stiffness worsened. Richard Stahl died on June 18, 2006, at the Motion Picture and Television Fund Health Center in Los Angeles after battling Parkinson's disease for nearly 10 years. He was 74 years old. His wife, Catherine Ish, survived him briefly, but passed away from cancer the following year. Stahl's career, filled with appearances in television classics like The Odd Couple and Barney Miller, left him with an estimated $1 million fortune. Eleanor Donahue as Miriam Welby. Eleanor Donahue was born on April 19, 1937, in Tacoma, Washington, USA. At 33 years old, she played Miriam Welby, a thoughtful and composed character in The Odd Couple. Her appearance carried the quiet elegance audiences already knew from earlier television success, and her presence added a sense of warmth and balance to the series. Yet her personal life unfolded with constant emotional turns. Donahue first married sound producer Richard Smith in 1955, and the couple had a son before divorcing in 1961. A year later, she married television producer Harry Ackerman, a powerful figure in the industry who was 25 years older than her. Ackerman adopted her first son, and together they had 3 more boys. The marriage lasted nearly 3 decades, until Ackerman died in 1991, leaving Donahue suddenly alone after years in a busy television household. Even while raising 4 children, Donahue fought another quiet battle. After the massive success of Father Knows Best, she struggled with depression and the fear of being trapped forever in the same type of role. Determined to keep working, she took guest roles in shows like The Andy Griffith Show and later projects including The Odd Couple, refusing to disappear when Hollywood began focusing on younger stars. In 2026, Eleanor Donahue is 89 years old and lives a quiet life in Palm Springs, California, with her third husband, actor Lou Genevrino, whom she married in 1992. She remains one of the last living witnesses to the golden age of classic American television. After decades of steady work in film and television, Donahue has an estimated $3 million fortune, the result of a career that survived fame, loss, and the difficult transition beyond early stardom. From unforgettable laughs to unexpected tragedies, the cast of The Odd Couple, 1970 to 1975, lived lives far more dramatic than the sitcom itself. So after seeing their journeys then and now, which cast member's story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more classic TV stories and updates. Kay St. Germain died on November 8, 1994, at the age of 80 from a brain tumor in Marana, Arizona. Her life, though never defined by major stardom, was filled with resilience across decades of change. 13 familiar faces. 13 stories that didn't end the way anyone expected. Behind the laughter of Green Acres, so many lives were shaped by illness, loss, and quiet struggles no one saw on screen. So what do you think? Were these just unfortunate coincidences, or does Hollywood hide more than it reveals? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories behind your favorite classic shows. Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more classic TV stories and updates.